So, a new national security strategy has just dropped, and let me tell you, it is not just some dusty document. It's a declaration. It signals one of the most dramatic shifts in U.S. foreign policy we've seen in decades, and it all kicked off with a single, absolutely shocking event.
I mean, it literally happened overnight. The president of a sovereign nation captured by American forces. News reports were just flashing with images of explosions in Caracas as U.S. military operations unfolded. The entire world was just left stunned, with one single burning question.
So, was this really about drugs, or democracy, or was it something else entirely? Well, the answer isn't in the headlines. Nope. It's actually buried inside a radical new strategic document that completely rewrites America's role in the world. You see, this operation wasn't random at all. It was the first and definitely the most forceful application of a newly reborn doctrine, one that deliberately echoes some of the most assertive and, you could say, aggressive moments in American history. This new doctrine basically draws a straight line through American history. You go back to 1823, the Monroe Doctrine told Europe, hey, stay out of our hemisphere. Then in 1904, Teddy Roosevelt's Corollary went a step further, saying the U.S. had the right to intervene. And now, this 2025 National Security Strategy, the NSS, explicitly revives that same logic with something called the Trump Corollary. So what is it? Well, the core idea is pretty blunt. Restore American dominance in its own backyard. This policy is specifically designed to block competitors from outside the hemisphere. We're talking mainly about China and Russia from owning or controlling strategically vital assets. And we're not just talking about oil fields here. Nope, this covers the whole shebang. Deep water ports, shipping canals, lithium mines, even telecommunications infrastructure. It's a massive departure from the foreign policy that's guided the U.S. for generations. Okay, so for over 70 years, the U.S. championed this rules-based order, right? Built on alliances like NATO and institutions like the UN. This new NSS, it completely rejects that vision. It sees a world of competing great powers, each with its own sphere of influence. For the U.S., that sphere is the Western Hemisphere, and the goal isn't spreading values anymore, it's all about protecting economic interests. So, let's see how this actually plays out in our first case study. And that brings us right back to Venezuela, doesn't it? This wasn't just some law enforcement action. This was the Trump Corollary in action, using what Teddy Roosevelt once famously called the big stick. So, on paper, the administration gave a whole list of reasons for the operation. Fighting narco-terrorism, removing hostile foreign influence, you know the drill. But they also made one justification crystal clear, and it points directly to the new doctrine's economic heart. This quote just perfectly sums up the entire shift. It's what you'd call a neo-mercantilist view, where national security and economic security are basically the exact same thing. It's about controlling resources, period. And, as you can probably guess, this has sparked a pretty fierce backlash. Of course, critics, including Maduro's own son, immediately called it a return to 19th century imperialism, gunboat diplomacy. Their argument is pretty simple. If the U.S. can just kidnap one head of state, then no country that defies Washington is safe. But some analysts are saying the real goal here is actually something a bit more subtle than a full-blown occupation. Yeah, this might not be about installing a new democracy. The strategy actually seems to be what you'd call managed continuity. The U.S. plans to work through the existing Venezuelan state, just, without Maduro, to secure the oil fields, kick out Chinese and Russian influence, and make sure everyone's compliant. This means Venezuela's oil revenue keeps flowing, but its final destination is now decided by Washington's interests, all without the massive cost of actually governing the country directly. But hard power isn't the only tool in this new playbook, not by a long shot.
The doctrine is also being applied using a very different method, a really sustained pressure campaign, and it's happening in a place you probably wouldn't expect: Greenland.
So, Greenland. Why on earth Greenland? Well, it's because this massive, ice-covered island has suddenly become one of the hottest, most strategic pieces of real estate on the entire planet. I mean, think about it. It's a perfect storm of strategic interests. Militarily, it hosts a crucial U.S. space base. Geographically, it's a vital choke point in the Arctic. And when it comes to resources, it's sitting on a treasure trove of rare earth minerals, the stuff that's essential for everything from electric vehicles to advanced weapons. And these are minerals the West is absolutely desperate to keep out of China's control. So the U.S. playbook for Greenland is, well, it's a full court press. It started with that public offer to buy it, which everyone kind of laughed off. But then things got serious. Washington appointed a special envoy with the explicit mission to make Greenland part of the U.S. It publicly accused its own ally, Denmark, of failing to protect the island. And behind the scenes, there are reports of covert influence operations and social media campaigns using local hires to stir up secessionist feelings. This isn't your grandfather's diplomacy. This is something else entirely.
Denmark's foreign minister said the U.S. envoy's appointment was deeply upsetting. And get this, for the first time ever, Denmark's own intelligence service is reportedly labeling the United States, a NATO ally, as a possible security threat. So this new doctrine isn't just targeting adversaries, it's totally redefining relationships with friends too.
Okay, so let's zoom out. If the Western Hemisphere is now priority number one, what does that mean for the rest of the world? Well, this new NSS draws a completely new map of global priorities.
And wow, the shift in priorities it's stark. Just look at this. Europe goes from being an indispensable ally to being criticized as a burden shifter. China is framed less as a rival based on values and more as the primary economic competitor. The goal with Russia is now to reestablish strategic stability. In the Middle East, forget promoting democracy, it's now seen as a source of international investment. This is a total strategic realignment.
And if you don't believe me, just look at the document itself. The text confirms this shift in focus. Asia gets 25 paragraphs of attention. Europe, the Middle East, and Africa combined only get 23. This is a massive pivot, and it's all driven by a fundamentally different view of America's place in the world. So, what does this all add up to? You've got Venezuela, you've got Greenland, this completely new world map. They all point to a profound change in the very nature of American power.
Look, for decades, the U.S. kind of saw itself as the policeman of a global, rules-based system. This new strategy, it throws that whole idea out the window. The new mission is to be a regional enforcer, unapologetically securing its own economic sphere of influence by any means necessary. But that raises a really critical question about the long-term consequences.
As one analyst puts it, there's a deep irony here. A policy that's designed to reassert American greatness might, by alienating allies and relying too much on force, actually end up accelerating its decline on the world stage.
So that leaves us and you with the big question. Is this new playbook a pragmatic return to realism, just focusing on core national interests in a really competitive world? Or is it a reckless retreat from global leadership that's ultimately going to leave America more isolated and less secure? That's the debate that will define the coming years.